Chief Teo, allayed, checked the time, fixed the clasp on his watch, and reached for his car key. The house was quiet. Air conditioner hum, glass clink from the hallway console, distant traffic beyond the high gate. Today's investor pitch could push Allayed Holdings into a bigger league. He was ready. Then Mira stepped into the corridor. She was the quiet housemaid, small frame, neat braids, simple flats. No earrings, no drama. She didn't block people. She didn't raise her voice. But this time she sank to her knees on the cold marble and lifted both hands as if steadying the air. "Sir, please, don't go out this morning." Her voice trembled, but her words were clear. "If you step out now, something terrible will happen." Teo froze. He never seen Mira like this. No flattery, no babble, just fear, bright and sharp in her eyes, the kind that doesn't come from stories or gossip. His phone buzzed in his pocket. The team was already gathering at the office. Money was on the line. Footsteps on the stairs. His wife, Selena, appeared in a silk robe, makeup already set for the day. She stopped, took in the scene, and folded her arms. "What's this nonsense?" "She wants me to stay home," Teo said, eyes still on Mira. Selena scoffed. "Because of a dream? Please. The meeting is worth billions. Get up, girl. Move." Mira didn't get up. "Sir, I saw the clothes you're wearing. I saw you enter the car. I saw you didn't return." She swallowed. There was blood. People shouting your name. Silence pressed against the walls. Teo wasn't a superstitious man. He made money by numbers, documents, and patience, not visions. Still, something about the honesty of her fear sent a private shiver through his chest. A quiet warning, like a hand on the brake. He set the key down on the center table. "I'm not going," he said. Selena blinked, then laughed like he'd told a bad joke. "You're serious?" "I'm serious." She turned on her heel and went back upstairs, perfume trailing behind irritation. Mira exhaled and stayed kneeling, as if the floor itself had been holding its breath with her. Teo sat in the living room, elbows on his knees, staring at nothing. He should have been shaking hands by now. Instead, he listened to the hum of the AC and the fast thud of his own heartbeat, and to a fear that refused to leave the room. He lasted 20 minutes before the phone finally won. The first call was his partner, Remy Okoro, breezy as always. "Where are you?" "Investors are edgy." Teo didn't explain. He only said, "We'll reschedule." He could hear Remy's disbelief grinding through the line. He cut the call. The next ring wasn't Remy. "Sir," it was the office secretary, voice shaking. "It's Joseph, your driver. There was an accident on the bridge. A truck lost control and hit your car. The same car you normally use. He's in the hospital. We thought you were inside." The room tilted. Same car, same route, at the same hour. He should have been on the road. He put the phone down and stared at the glossy floor until his reflection steadied. Myra's warning wasn't a threat. It had drawn a circle around death and kept him outside it. Selena drifted back into the living room, phone in hand. "So you're just staying?" "There was an accident," he said. "Our car. Joseph is hurt." She raised an eyebrow. "And that proves what?" "Lagos has accidents every day." He looked at her, at the blankness in her face. No shock, no relief, just an inconvenience. Something in his chest shifted, like a door he hadn't noticed before creaking open. "Mira stays," he said. Selena's voice sharpened. "You're choosing a maid over your wife." "I'm choosing peace," he answered, calm and final. That night, the house felt different. Not quieter. Teo had known silence for years, but clearer, as if the day had washed dust off glass. He started watching, not talking. He watched how Selena changed the subject whenever the accident came up. He watched how she avoided Mira like a shadow that knew too much. He said nothing. 2 days later, while he scanned numbers at the dining table, Mira spoke again, almost a whisper as she gathered plates. "Sir, please don't sign any documents this week." He glanced up. "I saw papers," she said softly. "You signed, and everything fell apart. Accounts frozen. Police. Handcuffs." Her eyes held his. "You could go to jail for what you didn't do." The words lodged deep. When a glossy contract arrived that night, a foreign account he didn't recognize, values that didn't sit right, Teo didn't reach for his pen. He locked the file away and made a quiet call to a friend in banking. The numbers told a darker story. Siphoned funds, shell projects, patient theft spread over years. Not a mistake. A map. He set the phone down, jaw tight. The near miss on the road, the chill in his own home, the rot under the company's paint, all of it pointed in one direction. Someone close wanted him ruined. And the only person who had pulled him back from the edge was the one everyone ignored. Outside, the night pressed against the glass. Inside, the empire looked the same. Candles, art-curated calm. But Teo finally saw the hairline cracks. He didn't speak. Not yet. He would move like a man learning a new house in the dark. Slow, sure, and ready for the next door to open. The mansion was full of light, chandeliers, candles, designer glass. But the air was heavy. Since the accident, Teo Alade had barely spoken. He didn't accuse. He didn't complain. He simply watched. He watched how his wife, Selena, never asked about Joseph, the driver lying in a hospital bed. He watched how she dismissed the incident as Lagos traffic. He watched how she stiffened each time Mira entered a room, as if the maid's quiet steps carried secrets. Selena tried to pick another fight. She's too bold. She snapped one morning, slamming a drawer shut. I don't trust her. Teo didn't lift his head from the papers in front of him. She does her job well. She's a maid, not a prophet. Selena's voice rose. Either she leaves, or I. She stays, he said flatly. The silence that followed was colder than shouting. Selena stormed off, perfume and anger filling the hallway. Mira remained invisible, gliding through the house like shadow and light together. She brought calm, but calm only made Selena's agitation worse. That night, when the house was asleep, Teo sat in his study alone. He turned the maid's words over in his mind. Don't sign. You'll lose everything. He had laughed at prophecies before, but the memory of his destroyed car kept flashing back like a warning flame. The mansion looked perfect, but he could feel it. Something was wrong in his home, and the cracks were no longer invisible. Before Teo ever owned estates and towers, there had been Remy Okoro. They started with one laptop and a rented cubicle, chasing land deals others mocked. Remy was the charmer, the dream seller. Teo was the quiet planner, the one who counted costs. Together they built Alade Okoro Holdings, now one of the biggest names in Lagos property. People admired their bond, like brothers, they said. Drinks, contracts, banter, success. But Teo had always known. Behind Remy's wide grin was hunger, sharp and restless. 2 days after Myra's second warning, Remy arrived at the mansion, as loud as ever. Brother. He pulled Teo into a hug that smelled of cologne and champagne. Thank God you didn't get in that car. That would have been tragedy. Teo gave a thin smile. Yes, a tragedy. Remy leaned back. Listen, the Dubai project is still alive. All we need is your signature. Just one stroke of the pen, and we're back in motion. He slid the folder across the glass table. The numbers gleamed on the first page, but to Teo they looked bent. Something wasn't right. Myra's whisper echoed in his head. If you sign, everything will collapse. He closed the file without a word. Leave it with me. I'll review. Remy's smile flickered, just for a second, before he laughed and clapped his friend on the back. That's the careful Teo I know. But don't take too long. Opportunities don't wait forever. When Remy left, the house grew quiet again. Teo stared at the folder, his jaw tight. This wasn't just about numbers. It was about trust. And he could feel it now. Trust was leaking away from the walls of his empire like water through cracked stone. Evening fell softly on the mansion. Teo sat at the dining table, scrolling through his tablet, while Selena stepped out to take a call. Mira moved quietly, clearing plates. She didn't speak at first. Then, in a voice barely above a whisper, she said, Sir, don't sign anything this week. Teo looked up, frowning. Mira kept her eyes lowered, pretending to pick up a napkin. I saw papers. You signed them. After that, everything went dark. Accounts frozen. Police. Sir, you were in handcuffs. Teo's heart skipped. The words didn't sound like gossip. They carried the same urgency as the morning she begged him not to leave. Before he could ask more, Selena walked back in. Phone pressed to her ear. Mira quickly carried the tray away, leaving the warning behind like smoke. That night, the folder from Remy sat unopened on Teyo's desk. He stared at it for a long time, Myra's voice replaying in his head. Finally, he locked it in his drawer. Something told him the truth was inside, but the price of ignorance was too high. The next morning, Teyo called in a quiet favor, a banker friend who owed him more than one. Together, they combed through transactions linked to the Dubai project. The numbers told a story. Hidden accounts, fake projects, millions funneled offshore, all traced back to Remy Okoro. Teyo leaned back, his throat dry. This wasn't just sloppy bookkeeping. It was betrayal, the kind sharpened by patience, spread out over years. His phone buzzed again, another message from Remy, urging him to sign. Opportunity waits for no man, brother. Let's close this. Teyo didn't reply. He sat in the quiet, gripping the edge of his desk. Betrayal had entered his home through his wife's coldness. Now it had crept into his empire through his best friend's smile. The mansion glowed with wealth, chandeliers, polished floors, art pieces on the wall. But beneath it, Teyo felt the ground shifting. And in that silence, Myra's voice lingered like a thread holding him back from the edge. By the third week, Selena's irritation had hardened into fury. She's too comfortable, she said one morning, slamming the wardrobe shut. Always moving around like she owns the place. Teyo didn't look up from his desk. She does her job well. She's disrespectful. She's disciplined. Selena spun around, arms folded tight. She's going. Tonight. Teyo raised his eyes slowly. His voice was calm, but his tone ended the argument. She stays. The silence that followed was sharp enough to cut glass. Selena's face flushed. That night, Selena locked herself in the guest room. Her perfume lingered in the hallway, but her absence spread wider than her presence ever had. Mira continued her quiet duties, unaffected, like water moving around stone. But Teyo noticed Selena watching Mira now with a new kind of hostility, the kind that came from guilt, not dislike. The truth revealed itself one evening. Selena's phone call stretched too long, her voice low and urgent. When she thought the house was asleep, she slipped out, scarf tied neatly, heels clicking on marble. Teyo didn't follow, not yet. He had already hired someone to. The report came back sharp. Selena had not visited her father as she claimed. She had gone to a boutique hotel in Ikoyi. A black SUV arrived minutes later. From it stepped Remy Okoro. Photos arrived with timestamps. Selena and Remy in the same room. The same hotel. Not business partners. Not friends. Lovers. Co-conspirators. The betrayal had a face now. Two faces. Teyo received the final message. They didn't leave the room all day. He read it without expression. No rage. No loud outburst. Only a heavy silence. Inside his chest, something cold was settling. The kind of calm that comes when a man sees what he already suspected, finally laid bare. Saturday evening. The city moved like any other weekend. Cars honking, lights glowing, but Teyo's driver took him to a quiet hotel in Ikoyi. He didn't announce himself. At the reception, he slid two thick bundles of cash across the counter. Room 312, he said. The key was handed over without hesitation. He walked calmly down the hallway, his steps steady, his mind already decided. When he unlocked the door, the scene froze like a photograph. Selena, in a white robe, stood near the minibar, a glass of wine in hand. Remy sat on the couch, shirtless, scrolling through his phone. Both looked up at once. The glass slipped slightly in Selena's hand. Remy jumped to his feet, trying to form a smile. Teyo. Teyo raised a hand. No words. No noise. His eyes moved from one face to the other, slow and deliberate. Selena's lips trembled. I can explain. Don't, he said quietly. The silence in the room pressed harder than shouting. Finally, he stepped back, opened the door again, and left as calmly as he came. No drama, no scene, just the end of something that had already died long before. Back at the mansion, Teyo sat in his study with the lights low. He made 2 calls, one to his lawyer, the other to the company accountant. Prepare divorce papers, and begin the process to buy out Remy's shares. He didn't eat for 2 days. The house was full of furniture, but empty of peace. Every photo on the wall mocked him. Every polished surface reflected his own silence back at him. The woman he once called wife gone. The man he trusted like a brother gone. And yet Mira was still there. Sweeping, folding, quietly placing food he barely touched. The one presence in the house that did not lie. When the divorce papers came back signed, Selena didn't even show up. She sent her lawyer instead. Tell him I agree to everything. Just give me peace. Peace. The word stung. She had destroyed his, yet wanted hers. Teo signed with steady hands, but inside his chest a fire burned. It wasn't anger that shook. It was anger that waited. The divorce was over quickly. No public scandal. No noise. Just papers, signatures, and silence. But silence has a weight. At night, Teo sat in the living room, lights on, curtains open, but the mansion felt like a coffin. He had everything, wealth, space, comfort, yet nothing felt alive. Selena's perfume was gone. Remy's laughter was gone. Even the walls seemed hollow. The only sound was Myra's quiet presence. She moved through the rooms with calm efficiency, folding sheets, polishing tables, placing food on the dining set that stayed untouched. One evening, Teo stared at a wedding photo of himself and Selena. Two smiling faces, two liars' promises. With a steady motion, he lifted the frame and smashed it against the marble floor. The glass shattered. The lie shattered with it. For the first time in weeks, he exhaled, not relief, not sadness, but something raw in between. The next night, Mira entered the living room. She didn't knock, didn't pause at the door. She walked in like someone carrying light into darkness. I'm leaving tomorrow, she said softly. Teo looked up, startled. What? Her gaze was steady. My work here is done. Teo stood slowly. You don't have to go. You're the only person who hasn't hurt me. His voice cracked on the last words. Myra's expression softened. I know, but I wasn't sent to stay. I was sent to save. She stepped closer. If you had signed that document, you would have lost your company, your name, your freedom. You would be in prison while the people who planned your end celebrated. But you listened. You stayed. That means you're ready. Ready for what? His voice was almost a whisper. To start again. This time with your eyes open. She smiled, not a goodbye smile, but the kind that said, you will survive this. Live right. Trust slowly. Love carefully. Watch everyone, she said as she moved toward the door. Then, as quietly as she had entered his life, Mira was gone. Teo stood in the doorway long after, the wind brushing past like a whisper. Something inside him was breaking and healing at the same time. The year that followed was one of silence and hard work. Teo poured himself back into Alade Holdings. He cleared out every trace of Remy's schemes, replaced compromised staff, refused bribes, and rebuilt the company from the ground up. He expanded to Abuja, recruited fresh young minds, and refused the shortcuts that once tempted him. Slowly, his reputation changed, not just as a wealthy man, but as a man of integrity. Business circles began to speak of him with respect, not fear. And inside, the wounds began to close. He walked again. He ate again. He laughed again, not the loud laugh of parties, but the quiet laugh of a man rediscovering life. One evening at a charity auction, he met a woman unlike Selena. She didn't care for his surname or his bank account. She cared for books, for children, for the small things. He didn't rush it, but when he held her hand under the stars, he knew. This time, it was real. Across town, in a house with cracked walls and weary voices, a man sat on his porch with his head in his hands. Inside, his wife and son argued, the sound sharp enough to split the air. A shadow fell across the steps. When he looked up, he saw her. Small frame, neat braids, simple flats. Mira. Good evening, sir, she said, voice steady and gentle. My name is Mira. I heard you might need some help in your home. The man frowned, confused. We didn't call for house help. Myra's gaze was calm, her words deliberate. Sometimes help arrives before we know we need it. He studied her for a long moment. Something in her eyes carried truth, the kind that doesn't need proof. Slowly, he stepped aside. Come in. As Mira crossed that threshold, the air seemed to shift. Another story was about to begin, another family about to be saved. For she was never just a maid. She was a guardian, a protector, sent only to those who thought all hope was gone. And her work was far from finished. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more touching stories that will inspire and move your heart.